ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلوات الله وسلامه وبركاته عليه. أما بعد فإن خير الكلام كلام الله وأحسن هدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. As we continue Buloogh Al-Maraam on Sunday, November 4th, 3:15 p.m., 2018, which agrees with the calendar, Islamic calendar, which is now 24th of the month of Safar, on the Islamic calendar, the month of Safar, the 24th, 1440 after the migration of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We continue Buloogh Al-Maraam in this chapter entitled Kitab Al-Nikah. This is a chapter that is very important in regards to how to deal with each other and our relationships, especially with spouses in the household. As we know, this is from the different types of plagues, or if you want to say, the sicknesses that we are being tested with in our communities, which is the tearing down of the fabric of the families, dissolvement of the homes, where a lot of the children are being taken care of by mothers with no fathers around. As this is a crisis that plays a very vital part in the destruction of society, is the destruction of the families. Because the society is made up of what, everyone? Of families. And if that's torn down, then it leads to other atrocities in the society, such as crime and mistreatment of people. And not only mistreatment of the people, but mistreatment of the family inside of the household. As we know, the religion of Al-Islam, walillahi alhamdu minna, has all the cures for everything, for society as a whole, in detail. It's not just jumping or, for example, playing a bunch of songs for 2 or 3 hours and think that's going to solve community problems. No, it isn't. Rather, it'll make it worse. Rather, you'll find the explicit or the details of what we need to rectify these problems and these social ills are in front of us. But a lot of us do not take time to take the initiative to learn what Allah Ta'ala sent down to rectify these problems. As we find in these ahadith, you need a chair? You all right? Get a chair. You want to get a chair? Get a chair. As we continue in the hadith, if you said, we talked about the chapter of Kitab Al-Nikah, the chapter of marriage, where, walillahi alhamd, we have been making these classes for the sisters, but these classes are generally open for everyone. Because likewise, our brothers need to be taught, and they need some insight on these matters. Because you'll find that a lot of our brothers do not have knowledge of these matters. They think they're only when they hear words such as marriage or families, they think it's only for women. No, family is for everyone. It's general for everyone. We started the first part of the hadith, if everyone looks in a book, on the story of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu ardah. The first part of the hadith where it says, قَالَ مَنْ كَانَ يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ فَلَا يُؤْذِي جَارَهُ. Whoever believes in Allah on the last day, then do not let him harm his neighbor. We talked about the benefits of this statement of the Prophet ﷺ last class. We said, number one, him alayhi salatu wasalam, as you'll find that he had a characteristic, as we know, called Jawami' al-Kalim. Jawami' al-Kalim. Jawami' al-Kalim meaning in the Arabic language that he, alayhi salatu wasalam, used to say small statements, but they will be very deep and lengthy and beneficial. As that was from the affairs of the Salaf. At the head of the Salaf was the Prophet ﷺ. As the Prophet ﷺ was known to say small few words, and people would understand from him so many things. And that's how we should try to attain that same type of characteristic. Not being so lengthy in our words, but saying short, straight to the point words, and at the same time, they carrying a lot of meanings. So the Messenger of Allah ﷺ had this characteristic, as we know, called Jawami'ul Kalim, saying short statements, but carrying a lot of meanings. And he said in the first part of the hadith, he says, whoever believes in Allah and the last day. So that right there is the foundation for rectifying society, right there. That's the foundation, which is one believing in Allah. Because no society can be reprimanded or reshaped or rectified except by belief in Allah Ta'ala in the last day, as we talked about. Because if a person believed in Allah and that he's going to be held accountable for what he does in this world, then he will be upright with everyone and everything, and give them their rights, and treating them in a fair, good manner, whether it be generally amongst the common folk, from the people he deals with on a daily basis, or his families and his children. That is the foundation, as we talked about. So the foundation, which starts with the huquq, meaning starting with fulfilling Allah's rights. If you fulfill Allah's rights and you fulfill the rights of Allah first and have good mannerism with your Lord first, if you have fulfilled that, then you will, as a result of it, inshallah, will fulfill the rights of the creation, and you will have good mannerism with them likewise. But it starts with that foundation. A person has to what? Fulfill the rights of his Lord first and have good mannerism with Allah. Because if you have good manners with your Lord, you will have good manners with the creation. But if you do not have good manners with Allah, then it's for all the more reason that you're going to treat the creation in a very disrespectful manner and not have good dealings with them or good etiquette with them. So the Prophet ﷺ laid down the foundation. Then after he laid down the rights of Allah, the Prophet ﷺ gave the solution of what will also be a part of rectifying social ills. What did he say? Do not let him not what? Harm his neighbor. Do not let him harm his neighbor. As we talked about this last week, we spoke about the meaning of it. And we also talked about an affair which is pertaining to the belief system. Where you find, like we talked about, when the Messenger of Allah ﷺ talked about these hadith, or where he mentioned in these narrations, for example, negation of faith as a result of falling into a particular sin, such as harming his neighbor. As we know, harming your neighbor is a major sin. That's from the kaba'ir. That's from the major sins, to harm your neighbor. That's not a small sin. That's not a minor sin. That's a major sin of harming your neighbor. And we talked about the various types of harm you can afflict your neighbor with. It's not just restricted to insulting or cursing or raise your voice, but anything, like as we talked about last class, in regards to what? Whether it be a growing something of a plant and it extends over to his side, causing some type of nuisance or him being irritated by that, or hanging something that affects his living or his daily affairs in his household, or whether it be by raising your voice or causing noises or making sounds, that will also likewise be a nuisance or a harm or make him irritated. That's all part of harming your neighbor. So it's not just insult verbally or raising one's voice or calling him out his name. That's all likewise from harming him. But all these other affairs are included with it, as we said last week. We talked about last week also in regards to the negation of Iman. Right, everyone? Like when the Messenger of Allah, for example, said, La yu'minu ahadukum. There's another narration also talking about the neighbor and how strong his status is as far as in regards to how he deserves good treatment. For example, the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, he says, Wallahi la yu'min. He said it 3 times. Wallahi la yu'min. Wallahi la yu'min. I swear by Allah, he does not believe. I swear by Allah, he does not believe. I swear by Allah, he does not believe. They said, who are they? Who is he, O Messenger of Allah? He said, الَّذِي لَا يَأْمَنُ جَارَهُ بَوَائِقَهُ. Meaning that the one whose neighbor is not safe from his harm. From his harm. So when the Messenger of Allah negated Iman here, is that the negation of mutlaqul Iman or al-Iman al-mutlaq? Is that the negation of the origin of faith? Meaning that if you fall into this sin, you're not Muslim anymore? Or does it mean the negation of the completeness of faith, where if a person fell into it, his faith would become incomplete? Which one does it mean, everyone? What did we say last week? We said that the meaning of it is, just as the sister said, ahsanti, that the meaning of it is that one's faith will be rendered incomplete if he falls into the sin. Not negating the origin of faith. Once the origin of faith is negated, that means that he's not Muslim anymore. Rather, we said that the meaning of it is that his faith is incomplete, meaning it has a deficiency in it. There's a deficiency in it. It's incomplete, meaning it's deficient. Not saying that it's negated totally. Why am I saying this? We're saying this because of the widespread of takfir, of declaring Muslims non-Muslims, because of the misunderstanding of these texts, in which you'll find that the people of takfir meaning declaring a Muslim to be a disbeliever or unbeliever, that's called takfir. And you'll find that they fall into it because of their misunderstanding of these texts. Not taking these texts from how the Salaf, meaning the Sahaba, the companions, understood it. Because the Sahaba, when they heard these texts, they knew that the Messenger of Allah was talking about how your faith will be incomplete, not invalid. That's not the meaning. So these particular texts is negating what, everyone? Completeness of faith. Not what, everyone? The origin of faith, or the foundation of faith. What they call mutlaqul iman. Mutlaqul iman, meaning the origin of faith. When I'm saying this, because you'll find that Shaykhul Islam mentions this. And if you don't understand what he's saying in his books, you will not attain the benefit. He'll say, for example, that these texts are negating al-iman al-mutlaq, not mutlaq al-iman. He says negating the completeness of faith, not the origin of faith. Whereas if a person understood it the opposite way, then you will fall in takfir. And no one from the Salaf, and at the head of them, the Sahaba, understood these texts that, for example, if you harmed your neighbor, if you harm your neighbor, that you would be considered a person that left the fold of Islam. No one understood that. It's clear. Is everyone with me? Similar to that is the examples we gave last week. For example, the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, as we know, لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه. That none of you truly believe until he wants for his brother what he wants for himself. Or none of you believe, it says in the hadith. None of you believe until he wants from his brother what he wants for himself. That the meaning of this hadith is what, everyone? Is it the negation of origin of faith or completeness of faith? Which one? Completeness of faith. Not the what? Not the origin of faith. So I want everyone to understand that point. That's very important. Because if you do not understand these texts correctly, you will fall into takfir. And that's what these texts were utilized by the deviant sect called the Khawarij, who are the people of takfir. Because takfir comes first, then shedding the blood of innocent people comes second. So they declare you to be an unbeliever firstly, then they go out wreaking havoc in society by now killing people. But the first step is to declare them an unbeliever first. Then the second step now is to plan and to now gather his co-conspirators together in order, or they conspire together to now kill innocent people. That's based upon the understanding of these texts. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? And the reason why the Khawarij fell into is because they did not take their ilm from the proper people, who were at the time the Sahaba, who were the companions. Rather, they declared a lot of the companions, or some of the companions, to be kuffar. And even to the point, as we know, the head of the Khawarij, who is Dhul Khuwaisira al-Tamimi, he's the head of the Khawarij, that he even went against the Messenger of Allah himself by telling him to his face, "O Messenger of Allah, be right, be upright, be just in what you're doing." He said that to the Messenger of Allah. The disrespect he said to the Messenger of Allah, until the Messenger of Allah said, "Woe to you." He says, "Who would be just if I'm not just?" Meaning that I was made as an example to humanity. If I'm not just, then who would be just? So you'll find that the Khawarij, due to their arrogance and them leaving off, taking their knowledge from the proper people, they fell into this type of deviance, such as takfir, then after that tanfir, then after that tafjir, as they say. They say takfir first, then tanfir, then tafjir. They say takfir first could declare a person to be an unbeliever, then scaring the people, then blowing up things. But the first step towards it is what? Is misunderstanding of these what? These texts. And likewise, the ayat in the book of Allah. The ayat in the book of Allah, same thing, like we gave an example for, like we said last week, where Allah Ta'ala says, فَلَا وَرَبِّكَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ حَتَّى يُحَكِّمُوكَ فِي مَا شَجَرَ بَيْنَهُمْ ثُمَّ لَا يَجِدُوا فِي أَنفُسِهِمْ حَرَجًا مِمَّا قَضَيْتَ وَيُسَلِّمُوا تَسْلِيمًا. That Allah Ta'ala says, "No, by your Lord, they do not believe until they make you, Muhammad, a judge in their affairs. Then they do not find any resentment or any aversion in their hearts for what you have what? For what you have given as a judgment. And they submit wholeheartedly." This ayah is, now I'm asking everyone, based upon the principles I just gave you, is it negating the origin of faith or the completeness of faith? I'm saying it again. Sisters, listen for clear, and brothers too. What you say? MashaAllah. What did you say? MashaAllah. Is this negating the origin of faith or the completeness of faith? Some sisters said origin, some sisters said completeness. Which one, sisters, based upon the principles we just learned here? Is this ayat negating the origin of faith or is it negating the completeness of faith? Which one? I hear some sisters say origin of faith, meaning he's not Muslim anymore. All right, now I'm going to explain. Alhamdulillah, I'm glad to get these answers. This is exactly what I love. Jayyid. Now I'm going to ask the sisters this question. Sisters, when a person sins, what are you doing? Are you now making the message of Allah, giving precedence to his affair over your desires when a person sins? Right or wrong? So, a person that sins, is he out the fold of Islam or not? No, he isn't. So that, based upon this ayah, and I said last week, this ayah was revealed to two Sahaba who are arguing. And I'll give the story later. It's a real interesting story. They said that one of the Sahaba, when the Messenger of Allah gave a judge, the Sahabi was still angry and still upset. He was still upset. What you'll find that Ahl Ilm say about the story that took place, I don't have time to get into it because I want to talk about how fair, good treatment of the women. So I ain't want to get too knee deep into this. But anyway, the ayah was revealed about two Sahabi who were arguing about a garden. and the Sahabi and the Messenger of Allah gave a hukum, the Sahabi was still upset. He still was a little upset. And after that, the ayat was revealed. When this ayat was revealed, of course, was now as admonishment, of course, it was an ayat for admonishment. So you now want to say that this particular Sahabi, when he was upset after the Messenger of Allah gave this judge, that now that particular companion was a kafir? Or was it just a sin? Which one? It was a sin. Just a sin. Because no one is going to say that that particular Sahabi that was mentioned in this particular narration was a kafir because he was still upset after the Prophet ﷺ gave a judgment. And likewise, sisters, brothers and sisters, listen to what I'm saying. This is very important. When a person sins, what are you doing? What are you doing? Aren't you falling into opposition to the ayat or not? Huh? Exactly. So now that based upon when you sin, so no one would be free. So that if that was the case, that every person that falls into sin, that would necessitate that he would not be in the fold of what, or he or she has left the what? Fold of Islam. That's the ideology of the Khawarij. So the ayah here was revealed for what? Negation of what, everyone? Completeness of faith, not what? Not the origin of faith. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Is it clear? Ahlus Sunnah yusuqun hadil ayat sawqan wahidan. That they say these ayat in a manner, that's what? That's sawqan wahidan, meaning in one way, in one methodology. That methodology of these ayats of negation of faith, or you will find swearing by Allah. And you notice the Messenger of Allah in the hadith about the neighbor, he said it 3 times. I swear by Allah, he doesn't believe. I swear by Allah, he doesn't believe. I swear by Allah, he doesn't believe. The one whose his neighbor is not safe from his harm. How would you understand that? If you didn't have these principles, you would say that, subhanAllah, that means if he harmed his neighbor, he's a what? Kafir. That's what you will understand. Because the Messenger of Allah, not only, he put more emphasis that's even more than the ayat that we just mentioned. He said it 3 times. And despite of that, the meaning of the ayat is talking about what, everyone? Complete negation of completeness of faith. Not the origin of faith. Is it clear what I'm saying? Jade. That point is very important. So we're teaching our sisters minhaj. Yes. Is it clear what I'm saying so far, everyone? Jade. I'm glad everyone is with me. So that was an important point that we put in this in these contexts. If we wasn't afraid, now this is what I want to mention before we move on. If it wasn't for the fact that we had these type of problems in our society with the different Muslims have deviated in their creed and methodology, also what Ahlul Sunnah is that we lay these texts upon what they're upon. So it could be more ablagh fi zajr. So it can have more of an impact in its what? In its context, meaning for the people not to fall into this sin. That if it wasn't for the fact that there were dangerous, deviant sects out there, we wouldn't even speak about this. Because you'll find that Imam Ahmed said that these texts should be made, we should just narrate them as they came, so that when the people hear them, it can have an impact so they would not fall into these type of sins. But due to the fact that there are deviant sects out there that have what? Caused or wreaked so much havoc and chaos, we have to now go inside of telling and teaching the people these type of principles. But the origin of the Sunnah is that if we didn't have these problems, we would just narrate these texts and leave them like that. You understand where I'm coming from, everyone? We wouldn't even get to the fact of, is it mutlaqul iman or iman al-mutlaq? The reason why Ahlul Sunnah came with that is because of the deviant sects who started wreaking havoc in society and started now distorting the light and distorting the beauty of Islam. So that's the reason why they had to come now with these principles, is these ahadith or ayahs pertaining to negation of mutlaq al-iman or iman mutlaq. That's because of the deviant sects. Not because that's something that the ulama came with just to come up with. No. They came with it because of these people who have deviated, and now they have to come with clarification so the people can know what these texts mean. But also the origin is, if it wasn't for that danger, then these texts would just be narrated as they came. So the people, when they hear it, it can have an impact. So they hear it, oh, subhanAllah, a Prophet ﷺ swore by Allah, so I'm not going to harm my neighbor. And he would just refrain from what? Harming his neighbor. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Everyone with me? Jay. طيب. So now it says, فَلَا يُؤْذِي جَارَهُ. Now then the message of Allah started with rectification. He gave another type of what? Another type of solution for the cures of social ills in these narrations, where he said, after he said that if one who believes in Allah in the last day, let him not harm his neighbor. We talked about, just before we move on, we talked about that your neighbor breaks down to 3 categories. What's the first one, everyone? We said the neighbor who is al-qarib, al-jar, al-muslim, al-jar, al-qarib. The Muslim, your neighbor who's a Muslim, and he's your relative. He's your relative. So he has 3 rights over you. He has the rights of what? Islam. He has the rights of being your family. And he has your rights of being what? Your neighbor. So you have 3 rights over you. And then we talked about last week, the second type of neighbor is who? Is who, everyone? Oh, wow. Time is flying. We talked about the second neighbor who is what? The neighbor who is a Muslim, al-jar al-Muslim. He's just a Muslim neighbor, but he's not your relative. And then we said the last one is he's just your neighbor. And he's not Muslim, and he's not your relative. He deserves a right over you. So even if he is a Muslim and he's your neighbor, he still deserves a right. He still has a right over you. He still has a right. And that is due to the ayah, which we talked about in Surah An-Nisa, where Allah wa ta'ala says in his book, وَاعْبُدُوا اللَّهِ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا. So Allah starts off with his rights. He says, do not worship Allah, do not set up partners with him in his worship. Then Allah starts with the rights of the people after his right. He says, and he gave the greatest of those who deserve excellence in your dealings with them, who after he mentioned, who are the parents. He says, وَاعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. And have excellence with your parents. So Allah started off with his rights. Then after one has fulfilled the rights of his Lord, then he starts off, he secondly mentions, after that, those who deserve your excellence as far as your dealings, who are your parents. Then Allah Ta'ala starts talking about other than those. He branches off. We said, وَبِذِي الْقُرْبَى, the one who's your closest relative, and the orphans, and the indigent, meaning the people who's in need, that's impoverished. And then Allah talks about the neighbor, who's your relative, and then the neighbor that's close to you, and even the one who is sahibi bil jamb, meaning the one who accompanies you in your travels, and the one who's a wabn as-sabil, the one who's a beggar in the road, and that which your right hand owns or possesses. طيب. So that's what we talked about in that class, last class. So now we move on to the next part of the narration. The Prophet ﷺ gave another important point. It mentioned something that's very, very important that he wanted all of the men to listen to. He said in the hadith, وَاسْتَوْصُوا بِالنِّسَاءِ خَيْرًا فَإِنَّهُنَّ خُلِقْنَا مِنْ ضِلْعٍ وَإِنَّ أَعْوَجَ شَيْءٍ مِنَ الضِّلْعِ أَعْلَاهُ فَإِنْ ذَهَبْتَ تُقِيمُهُ كَسَرْتَهُ وَإِنْ تَرَكْتَهُ لَمْ يَزَلْ أَعْوَجْ فَاسْتَوْصُوا بِالنِّسَاءِ خَيْرًا. The hadith of Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu ardah, the Messenger of Allah said, he says, وَاسْتَوْصُوا بِالنِّسَاءِ خَيْرًا. I'm giving you advice to accept. So the Messenger of Allah is saying, I'm giving you advice to accept. Treat the women and deal with them in good. Treat the women and deal with them in good. Then the Messenger of Allah said, for verily they were created from the rib, and the most crooked part of the rib is the upper part, or the top part of the upper part. And if you try to go to straighten it out, you will break it. And if you left it alone, it will continue to be crooked. So I give you the advice to accept. Treat the women kind. Treat the women kind. The other narration, if everyone looks in a book, فإن استمتعت بها استمتعت وبها عوج. He says, and if you enjoy, meaning of the life you have with her and enjoyment, then you will enjoy your life with her, but however, know that she has crookedness. And if you try to straighten it out, you will break it. And breaking her is divorcing her. So this hadith, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, you will find is from the hadith to let the Messenger of Allah had taught how men should deal with women. And there's so many narrations in this regard. So basically the Messenger of Allah is teaching men that if you marry a woman, know for sure there's going to be something in her you're going to dislike. She has crookedness with her. She has a crookedness with her. Patience. She has some crookedness with her. There's an ayah in the book of Allah. Allah Ta'ala says in his book, He says, فَإِن كَرِهْتُمُوهُنْ فَعَسَىٰ أَن تَكْرَهُوا شَيْئًا وَيَجْعَلَ اللَّهُ فِيهِ خَيْرًا كَثِيرًا. Allah Ta'ala says in his book, and if you detest something in her, there's an ayah. For verily perhaps, maybe you detest a thing and Allah has made in it a lot of good. So Allah himself is saying, this is how I created women. I created them in a manner where more than likely if you marry them, you're going to find something that's going to be what? Displeasing to you. You're going to the point where Allah gives a command, sorry everyone, gives a detail for clarification, where He says, if you detest something. So it says, if Allah is saying what? It's guaranteed that no woman that you marry, except that you're going to find something what? There's going to be something that you're going to be what? Displeased with. You're going to find something like that. You're going to find it. But listen to what Allah says. For maybe perhaps you detest a thing and Allah has made in it a lot of good. I'm going to get more deeper and deeper in detail, because I'm going to talk about a lot of details of how the Messenger of Allah put up with certain things. So this is to let us know that the woman is what? In her origin, she's not supposed to be wearing, and this is to teach us men, that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ is telling us that what? Women are not supposed to be wearing all these different types of hats, all these different types of hats in which men now have bonded upon women. With a point where the woman does not know what is her what? What is her role in the household. Based upon these narrations and the conclusion after we draw up, you'll find how and why does men put all these different pressures on the woman based upon the fact that this is how Allah created her and how the Messenger of Allah taught us of how she is. No. So listen to this. In this is what? As Ibn Uthaymeen mentions in this regard of this narration. He says, in this is an evidence to show that man was created, how man was created, of course, and likewise the origin of the woman. From what is taken from these narrations, is to give emphasis of being patient upon women and upon the crookedness that she'll have within her nature, and not to try to desire to straighten it out. And I'm going to talk about the meaning of straighten it out. For verily the crookedness is something natural, in which we'll talk about inshallah and give more details. And also the treatment of her. Oh, where is the narration of San'ani? I just had it. The Imam San'ani. I just had the narration of San'ani. It's right here. No. So it says here that it's befitting that the men, the women or the husbands, that they have patience upon their wives, generally. Because the message of Allah is teaching their reality and their nature. Especially in regards to the affair of their jealousy, as we'll talk about inshallah. And you'll find that the majority of, like we said, of what women who's your wife, in which Allah Ta'ala has made allowed for men to have more than one wife, as we'll talk about inshallah. As we'll talk about. And I think that's another thing that we have to come to realities and grips. And this is, and I'm not afraid to say this to our brothers and sisters. I'm even preparing my daughter. I'm preparing her, and she's prepared for the day where she will have to be married to a man that might have to what? Have a wife already. Because it's coming to those realities now. All the good men are taken now. And all that's out here is what's out here. So now, I would rather marry my daughter off to a man that already has a wife. And he knows how to treat her good. He knows that he's religious. He fulfills his responsibilities. He's doing what he's supposed to do. He has kindness. He has tolerance, to the end of it. Rather, I marry my daughter off to a man that's single, and he's cheating, and he's taking advantage, and he's playing mind games, and he's a narcissist, and he's a sociopath, and he's playing mind games and taking our emotional roller coasters. And he's just one mad husband. So I could just walk around with a title to say, well, at least he only got one wife. That doesn't make absolutely any sense. And I'm preparing my daughters and my children for that, because now you see the actualization of what the Prophet ﷺ taking place, where there is a shortage of good men out here. And when I say shortage of men, I mean men with the true meaning of the word. Not just the actual kind of how he was born, just being a man. No, we're talking about true men with the whole complete package. They're few in number out here. And they're already taken. A lot of them, if not all of them. All of them are married, and all of them have children, and all of them have kids. That's the reason why I'm preparing my daughter. One day you might have to take on a husband that already have a wife, and be prepared for that, because that we are at these particular times. We are, and you see day by day as the years go by, there are more shortage of men every day. And when I say men, like I said, not just saying men as far as the number. I'm talking about men as far as the meaning of the word. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? And this is what we should also be preparing our daughters for. Our daughters, to prepare them mentally and in their belief system, to say to our daughters, one day you might have to marry a man that already has a wife. Because there's a shortage of good men out here. And not only good men are already married with children. And these are things we should be preparing our children for. How many times we keep hearing in the newspaper every day, someone got shot and murdered from our men. Another person got shot and murdered. Another youth got shot and murdered. Another youth got shot and murdered. Every day. So the message of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and how he used to deal with his wives. Now listen to this. There's a hadith in Al-Bukhari on the authority of Anas. Listen to this narration, everyone. And brothers, I want everyone and the brothers to listen to this narration. Brothers, hear this. Upon authority of Anas, and I'm going to just say it in English. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ was with one of his women, one of his wives. So one of his wives has sent to the believers a plate of food to the Messenger of Allah ﷺ. So he sent the plate of food to the Messenger of Allah. So the Messenger of Allah, when it arrived to the house of Aisha seen the plate. What did Aisha do? She smacked it out of the hand. Bang! Knocked the food, knocked the plate off, broke it. Not only the food fell on the ground, but it also what? Broke. فضربت التي النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في بيتها يد الخادم. See, not only that, the one who came and brought the food, she knocked it out of her hand. Out of what? Jealousy. So the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what did he do? He got on the ground, he picked up the plate. The majority of how our men are these days, if our woman would have did that, what would we would have done? You dumb broad, you make me sick. And we start using profanity, using words, harsh words, screaming and hollering. You dumb broad, you stupid, what is wrong with you? That's why you're incomplete in your mind, because of stupid things you do like this. Start verbally abusing her and putting her down. That's what the majority of my men these days would have done. No patience, no tolerance, no endurance, nothing. Calling her out her name, calling her the curse, every curse word under the sun. This is what I'm talking about. You're naqis in your aql. You're incomplete in your mind. This is what I'm talking about. What did the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam do, brothers? What did he say? What did he do? He gathered the plate, and you know what he said? غارت أمكم. He said, غارت أمكم. He picked up the plate, and the Messenger of Allah just said, this is the jealousy of your mother. Meaning this is the jealousy of the mother of the believers, of course. Meaning he said, this is just the jealousy of my wife because she loves me. Because I know she loves me. So the Messenger of Allah had what? Tolerance for this type of what? Behavior that happens. And jealousy that happens from our families. So the Messenger of Allah said, غارت أمكم. So then, of course, the one who delivered the plate, she came with the plate, and the Messenger of Allah took another plate that wasn't broken, and he sent it with the khadim, or the one who brought it, with that plate that was fixed and intact, and he kept the broke one in his house. Alayhi salatu wassalam. And also likewise, story of what happened, because we know Aisha also used to become jealous when she used to hear what? She used to hear even Khadija's name. Even though she died, radiyallahu anha ardaha. She just used to hear her name. And she would become jealous. Even though Khadija already what? She died. Radiyallahu anha ardaha. He says, قالت, and this is what Aisha used to say. She said, ما غرت على أحد من نساء النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ما غرت على خديجة وما رأيتها ولكن كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يكثر ذكرها وربما ذبح الشاة ثم يقطعها أعضاء ثم يبعثها في صدائق خديجة. She said, I did not have more jealousy upon anyone from the women of the Messenger of Allah than I had jealousy for Khadija and what I used to see. And I never seen her. I never even seen her. And the Messenger of Allah, because of how much the Messenger of Allah used to mention her. He said, for maybe perhaps he would even slaughter a sheep, and he would cut it up in pieces, and he would send it to the friends of Khadija. And she said, فَرُبَّمَنْ قُلْتُ لَهُ كَأَنَّهُ لَمْ يَكُنْ فِي الدُّنْيَا إِمْرَأَةٍ إِلَّا خَدِيجَةٍ. فَرُبَّمَنْ, he says, so maybe perhaps I used to say to him, to the point, she says, if there's no woman in the whole dunya than Khadija, فَيَقُولْ إِنَّهَا كَانَتْ وَكَانَتْ وَكَانَ لِي مِنْهَا وَلَدْ. She said, I used to hear from him, and she used to have jealousy. She used to say, verily, she was like this, and she was like this, and I had a child by her, to the end of it. So it's to show that Aisha had jealousy. And the Messenger of Allah had what? Patience with her. He had patience. طيب. So that's the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam. So did the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when he seen the plate smacked out of her hand, did the Messenger of Allah lay his hands on her, smack her upside the head, call her you dumb, stupid broad, to the end of the names that people would call their wife, or their wife if they did this, calling out her name, now start beating her down mentally to the end of it. Is this what the Messenger of Allah did? The Messenger of Allah knew that it was done out of what? Out of jealousy and love. She knew that she loved him. Alayhi salatu wasalam, and that Aisha loved the Messenger of Allah deeply. Deeply had a deep love for the Messenger of Allah. Who wouldn't have a deep love for the Messenger because you're married to the greatest man of all creation? Who wouldn't? You understand? For the greatest man of all creation, after all the prophets and messengers, the greatest of them. And who would not have jealousy for that type of individual? You understand, everyone? طيب. Also, the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, oh man. Also, to let one know how the nature of a woman is also likewise, oh man, I forgot that one. Excuse me, everyone. Just give me a second. Also, likewise, the narrations of the Prophet ﷺ, where he said, خَيْرُكُمْ خَيْرُكُمْ لِأَهْلِهِ وَأَنَا خَيْرُكُمْ لِأَهْلِي. The best of you are the best to his family, and I am the best of you to my family. And also, with the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, it's also in this chapter, it's all going to come. Where the Messenger of Allah ﷺ has said, the most complete of you, and I want everyone to listen to this, the most complete of the believers in their faith is what, everyone? The best of them in character and etiquette and manners. أَكْمَلُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ إِيمَانًا أَحْسَنُهُمْ خُلُقًا. The most complete of the believers in their faith is the best of them in their etiquette and manners, and their etiquette and their manners, and their what? And their khuluq, and their treatment of people, and their behavior. And the best of you are the best to his women. Or the best of you are the best of those to his women. I don't believe I lost it. There's a narration of when the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, I want to read this quick benefit of what the Shaykh Uthaymeen even mentioned about the jealousy of women and how they are. Listen to this. He even mentions this. He mentioned in this of a benefit of this. I want everyone to listen. He said that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, of course, in a lot of narrations, is telling us, he said that firstly, number one, how the religion accepts, or the Messenger of Allah gives an exhortation to everyone who has some type of weakness, meaning as far as the levels of it, how they should be treated with kindness, even more, and highly emphasizing on it. For example, the treatment of a person who's impoverished, or the treatment of an orphan, or the treatment of the one who's in the road that doesn't have anything, or, for example, the treatment of everyone who has some type of weakness, until the point where he even mentioned about the women. For example, he says, I've not seen of more incomplete in their intellect and in their religion that takes away from a man with a strong resolve than one of you. Now listen to what he says. As we know that the Messenger of Allah talks about the incompleteness of their religion based upon what, everyone? Because a woman will spend her nights and her days for a moment of time not praying and not fasting. Of course, that's the incompleteness of her what? Religion. And as far as the incompleteness of her mind, the Messenger of Allah gave a description and said, he said, do you not see the testimony of one man is equal to the testimony of how many women? Of two. So the Messenger of Allah is describing this. Now, as a result of it, you'll find that he gives details. He's saying this for what reason, men? He's saying this to let you know, to let you have more what? Tolerance, and to let you know to have better what? Treatment. Not for the opposite. To say, oh, men, this is for you now to take advantage. Play mind game with her. Emotionally break her. As we're going to talk about another narration, as I'm going to discuss in another moment if I have time, where the Messenger of Allah ﷺ had mentioned and said about another narration which we'll discuss, the meaning of it, where he said about how to treat women and how to also deal with them, where he said, وَلَا تُقَبِّحُ الْوَجْهِ وَلَا تَضْرِبُ الْوَجْهِ وَلَا تُقَبِّحُهُ. Where he said, do not uglify the face, or do not hit the face. So I'll talk about the meaning of darb in the religion of Islam, because that's another type of ambiguity that the people use of how striking the woman, what type is it, and what are the conditions for it, and what type of hit. And how, and what is in that, because that, and I'll consider that the last resort. As we'll talk about, inshallah, in a minute. I'll talk about it. But firstly, notice that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, do not strike the face. And he said, do not uglify it. What is the meaning of uglify it? What is the meaning of that word, huh? You'll find that Ahl Ilm, from the Shaykh Uthaymeen, mentions it says, do not uglify the face, meaning don't say to a woman, you are ugly. Do not say that, meaning don't verbally abuse her. Don't say, ya qabihat al-wajh. That's the meaning of the wording. Don't uglify the face, meaning don't verbally abuse her by saying, you ugly-faced woman. You're ugly. Don't say that. Don't verbally abuse her. Do not emotionally, do not mentally break her down. Don't say these things to her. Is it clear so far what I'm saying, everyone? All these narrations, we're going to get into it, inshallah. Don't worry. And when the Messenger of Allah said that breaking her down is what? Is divorcing her. Meaning one of the most turmoil, most greatest ways that you can break a woman is to divorce her. To break a woman down is to divorce her. Especially if she's a good woman and she's doing the best that she can. Just listen to what they... Oh man, I wanted to talk about this today. But anyway, now, so now what it goes on to say about how the women were treated before Islam. We'll talk about that in a minute. Oh man, I got to do one after another. But he was talking about, I wanted to talk about the jealousy. So you'll find that even Shaykh Uthaymeen talks about how women are so jealous. And he said that the women, he says, as far as in their mindset, he said, you'll find, now listen what he says. He was saying, now listen. He said, you'll find that a woman could be so jealous of her husband. He said, to the point where he said that if the husband, let's just say he has a mother, his mom, and you see that he's treating his mother very, 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 very well. Very well. He said, you'll find that the ghira, or the jealousy of women, to the point where she even get jealous, to be like, to the point as if she will start becoming upset to the good treatment of her mother. Jealousy can reach that level. To the point is as if what? To see that how he's treating his mother will make her jealous to that level, to the point where as if he's what? She even says something. That jealousy can even arouse to that level of a woman. He said, for this instance, what do you do? How does a woman, what does he do? Listen to what he says here. He said, إِذَا غَضِبْتَ أَرْضِيهَا وَإِذَا لَقِيَتْنِي بِوَجْهٍ عَابِسٍ أُلَاقِيهَا بِوَجْهٍ مُنْبَسِطٍ. This is the kalam of the sheikh, not me. Listen to what he says. He says, if she becomes angry, I still try to please her. He says, if she meets me with a face, with a face that's frowning, he says, I try to meet her with a face that's what? Relaxed and chilled and laid back. And munbasit, like smiling. لأنك لو قابلت بمثل ما تعاملك به طال الشجار والنزاع والسب والشتم. He said, because if you was to do it in the reciprocal of what she does, he says, then argumentation and conflict and back and forth and insults and cursing and using these different types of unacceptable speech will start to occur. He says, and to the point where he even might divorce. And it says, then you'll find in that instance who will find a ruling you'll try to find now to get yourself out of it, knowing in the back of your mind that you probably still love her, and she probably still loves you. How many times do we find brothers and sisters, they get divorced, and you tell them, sister, just separate from her. She might be just mad. You're just mad. Separate. But they don't got to ask for a khula'. Separate yourself. Or the brother, I'm tired of her. I'm sick of her. Well, Sahi, just calm down. Calm down. Why don't you just go to your mother's house? Relax there for a day or two. You don't have to divorce. No, I'm going to divorce her. Then a week, 2 weeks later, I miss her. Then 2 weeks later, sister come, I miss him. I still love him. I'm mad though, but I'm still love him. Play. Then another month comes by. Then you'll find that I miss my husband. She crying. I miss my husband. He's not a bad guy. I was just mad. Or you'll find that the brother say the same thing. I miss my wife. I love her. I was just mad. You understand? I was just upset. Tayyib, this happened with the Salaf. Didn't this not happen with Ali ibn Abi Talib too? With the Messenger of Allah's daughter, the greatest, his daughter, to the point where Ali had to leave out the house and sleep in the masjid. So this happened with the women who are the best of women, who are the Sahabiyat. And Ali ibn Abi Talib, there was a little bit of argument that took place between Ali and the daughter of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What did he do? Did he divorce her? No, he left out to calm down, went to the masjid and laid down until he was covered in dust. And the Messenger of Allah called him, get up, Abu Turab. Get up, O son of the dirt. Get up. But he went out to what? Calm down. Did he call? Did he raise his voice? No. Patience. And like I said, how many times have I entertained these type of situations where I tell the brothers, if it's a situation where, because situation where something happens in a relationship, sometimes you just need to separate for a minute. Doesn't always require a khula' in the divorce all the time. Things happen. It happened to the Sahaba. It's going to, most definitely it's going to happen between us, especially from the backgrounds we come from, backgrounds that we carry on with us in Islam, and it affects our relationships. Not saying that you just go to your friend's house or go to somewhere we could just stay there for a couple of days and calm down. Or you tell the sister the same thing, sister, why don't you just go to your mom's house for a couple of days and just calm down? Why is everything always in the khula' and talaq, khula' talaq, khula' talaq? We want to get in fast and we want to get out fast as soon as something don't go our way. Not realizing that you're not going to have no marriage in the dunya, except that more than likely the same thing is going to happen. Because everybody human beings, and everybody is going to have some type of what? Some type of disagreement. That's the nature of human beings. There's going to be a disagreement in your relationship no matter who you're with. You're just going to know how to what? Deal with it. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? I don't care, sister, if you marry 5, 6 men. It is sad that I've known some sisters have had these amount of marriages. Sisters, 5 or 6 brothers. And I'm sure that you said you had a disagreement with what? Every single last one of them. So don't you think now you need to reevaluate your situation, knowing how to deal with it now? Because you keep running inside the same problem, right or wrong. You keep running to the same wall with 6 different men. So you don't think that you got something to do with it now? Or now you want to keep playing the victim role with everybody else? It's all of them except me. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? That's the attitude that America's instilled in us. Play the point, the finger role. Victim. I'm always being victimized. After 7 brothers, sister, 8 brothers you've been married to, you sure you don't got nothing to do with it? You've been oppressed and victimized 8 times? And you had nothing to do with it? Is it clear what I'm saying so far, everyone? Jayed. As far as it regards to now, no, it takes 2 to tango. No, you can't say now 8 brothers. No, it takes 2 to tango. Trust me, sisters. Men, if they know they got a woman, they know they got a good woman, they're going to hang on to you. Trust me. I know how men are, and I talk to men. If men know you're a good value woman and you're a good woman, they're going to hold on. Men that want out quick, usually there's something going on. Not just, it might be on his side, no doubt. We're not saying that the men are wrong. The men are wrong in a lot of instances that I have talked to them. But if you look inside and study the whole issue, it's problems on both sides, from the men and the women both. Because if you get to the deep root of the problem, the man said, I'm displeased with this or what have you. She doesn't act like a lady in this manner. She doesn't act like a man or lady in this regard. I'm doing the best I can, but she still talks to me, calls me out my name, calls me the N-word, or what have you. You'd be like, sister, you that's how you speak to your husband? You call him the N-word? That's wrong. It goes on both sides. Trust me, if a man knows he has a good woman, he's going to hold on. He's going to hold on with his molar teeth because he knows what's out here. A lot of men know what's out here, just like the women know what's out here. They're going to try to hold on and work it out. Us that's now in our 40s and our 50s, our 60s now, we know what's out here. It's really, truly nothing out here. The quality of men and women are low here, are low in these days. Both. Not just in the women, the men too. Everything is low budget and low quality now. It is. And for one sisters now, you'll see as you get older, and when you see an experience, you're going to see it yourself. That when now you have something good, you're going to try to hold on to it. But as far as in regards to now, the treatment of women and how to deal with them, now listen to what the Sheikh goes on to say. Listen to what he goes on to say. He said, now, if you was to now do it in a reciprocal, where you're treating her the way she treats you, he said, طال الشجار والنزاع, conflict and argumentation and bickering will keep what? Will keep happening, occurring. He said, for perhaps maybe you'll divorce, and you will not find a mufti or someone to get you out of that problem once it happens. Listen to what he goes on to say. He says, حين إذن تكون المشاكل, then there will be a lot of problems. He said, the man that truly understands, listen to what he says here. يستطيع أن يرضي المرأة, he is able to please a woman. He says, because a woman, she's pleased with a kind word, with good words and good treatment. If she's a good woman, of course. She's a good quality woman, she's going to what? She's going to be pleased with a good word and good treatment. It says, لا سيما من الزوج ترضيها. He says, oh man, I just lost my page. وكل كلمة تغضبها وينبغي. He said, just like he says a woman, of course, you have to be very careful because certain words makes her angry. It's the opposite effect. He says the good words likewise will also what? Please her. And good treatment will please her. And this is what goes on to say. وينبغي مثلا بعض النساء يكون عندها غيرة عظيمة. Now this is the part I wanted to talk about. He says, حتى إذا رأت يكرم أمه جعلت الأم بمنزلة الضرة. Listen to what he goes on to say. He says, even at the point where he says, if you see, a woman sees see her husband, honoring his mother, his own mother, honoring his mother, she says she will make the woman as if she's the level of a second wife. She sees this. And she, to the point where she, even maybe her jealousy would take her to the level to what? Have some type of hatred for the mom. And maybe perhaps she might even what? Insult her mother. He says, عِنْدَهُ لَوْ كَانَ لَهُ أَصْحَابٍ, even from good treatment of men. He said, in certain cases, you'll find this type of jealousy with women. He says, لَكِنَ الْغِيرَةِ فَمِثْلَ هَذِهِ كَيْفُ أُعَامِلُهَا. Now, how do I deal with it? He says, you deal with it according to the what? According to her mind, and also likewise of trying to please her. وأذكر هذا الشيء وأقول لا ينبغي أن تضعي نفسك في هذا الموضع تتعبين فتيستمتع بها على عوج. He said this is to what? Of showing of good treatment upon her what? Upon her crookedness. Is it clear what I'm saying so far, everyone? No. So it says, ومن فوائد الحديث شدة الطلاق. There's other things I wanted to talk about, but we had to stop soon, and I didn't want to stop soon. Something else I wanted to read today, but we don't have time. طيب. Also, you'll find in this hadith how divorce is very, very severe and difficult upon a woman. Because part of breaking her is divorcing her. Part of breaking her is divorcing her. And that is one of the most difficult affairs that are heavy and weigh heavy upon a woman. And that's when the Messenger of Allah says here clearly where it says, breaking her is what? Divorcing her. Breaking her is divorcing her. So that's one of the worst ways that one could break a woman down is what? Divorcing her. طيب. So now, I'm going to come in a couple of more minutes. A couple more minutes and we'll stop. طيب. So now we're talking about all these different types of matters, which is going to also, it's also going to come and the other different types of other narrations that's going to come, inshallah. I wanted to also read this, and I'll read this quickly, and then we'll stop, inshallah. Oh. قوامون على النساء أطعنكم فلا تبغوا عليهن السنة. Here it is right here. طيب, last part, and we'll stop here, inshallah. You'll find that Ahl Ilm say in regards to the striking of women is not permissible except with conditions. Except with conditions. And we know that the origin of the strike does not leave any type of what? Bruise or mark. And also it's used as a last resort. طيب. أولا عند خوف النشوز وعدم طاعة الزوج والارتفاع عليه وعدم الامتثال لأمره. So firstly, it's with the fear of what? Of marital discord. So firstly, number one, from the conditions of firstly, number one, is the fear of marital discord. And that the woman is disobedient to her husband. And also likewise her raising herself above him and not obeying his command. All of this we'll talk about, inshallah, brothers and sisters. We'll talk about how this is also part from the maintenance of the man. The maintenance of the man is what brings the obedience of the woman. The maintaining of them. The men now is the opposite. You'll find that the woman maintains and he's the what? He's the woman in the house. Is it clear what I'm saying so far? What do I mean by that? He's the one that sits in the house while she goes off to work. Type. Well, matter of fact, I don't have time because we got to stop. Wow. The Maghrib comes in, what, 5 something? Man, we got to stop. Type. I'm going to discuss this, and I want everyone to listen to this last part. We'll stop here. Sisters, and I'm gonna give a lecture on this when I had the time. One of the problems, and a lot of our brothers and sisters don't realize this, when they get married, sister or sisters and brothers, both, are you looking for a mom or are you looking for a wife? And likewise, the question to our sisters, are you looking for a husband or are you looking for a father? That's a problem in a lot of marriages, a lot. You'll find that women some of our sisters and brothers don't realize because of a lack of not knowing what to look for in a spouse, is as if they don't realize it. Some of them do realize it. Some of them don't realize it. That when they get in a marriage and you marry a brother, it's as if he's a little child, and as if the wife now has to play on the role of a what? Of a mother, of a mom, like he have to raise a grown man. And that's a problem. That could cause a lot of marital discord. That a woman come in a situation, it's like a little kid. It's like I got to raise a child in my house. And I'm sure that's discomfort for the woman, because a woman doesn't want to marry a man that feels like she's his what? His mother. That's a terrible feeling. Like, I'm not your mom, I'm your wife. And likewise, vice versa. You'll find that brothers marry sisters. They'll marry a sister, and as if he has another child in his house. That she has the same conduct and behavior of a child, of whining and for example, of different types of conduct and behavior, which is a behavior that is as if her mother didn't raise her or the parents didn't raise her, and now it's as if you have to be a father of another child in your house. That's a problem. And we don't realize that causes a lot of marital discord, as I'll talk about on another occasion. That brothers and sisters, when we get in these marriages, you have to now, no man wants to feel like I'm your father, except a sick man. Like, oh, you want me to be your daddy? I'll be your daddy. Be in the house 3 o'clock. Stand in the corner for 2 hours. I'm not your father. I'm your husband. If you want a father, then you're going to have to go back to your mother and your father. Tell them that, listen, I'm not the one that's going to do a job that someone else didn't do. That's not my job. It's to raise someone else's child. Nobody wants to feel like that in a relationship. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? That's a lot of problems in our marriages and in what's going on in our communities. People come into marriages with the conduct and behavior of children. And a man does not want to raise, for example, you marry a man, he already has four children. So now he has a fifth child he has to raise, and that's his wife. You understand what I'm saying so far, everyone? Then another thing that we'll talk about on another occasion, and we'll stop here inshallah, is you'll find that there's situations when, and I noticed this from some of our sisters, they do this. And the sisters, you'll find two of the opposite extremes in this. And men go for it. You'll find that a woman will marry a man, right? Tell the man, listen, I'll maintain you. I'll pay for everything, right? I'll pay for everything. You stay in the house. Do you know what she's trying to do to you? She basically don't want you to get a job because she knows in the back of her mind, if he's the one taking care of the household and he has some money, he's going to get married again. So now I'll be the man of the house. You stay in the house. I'll take care. I'll buy you clothes. I'll buy you everything you want. Why? Because she has a problem as far as what? Control. She wants control over him. That's a problem. You'll find there are women out there that do this to men. They take away his manhood as being a man. She wants to be the man of the household for control, to dominate him. I'll be the one what? I'll be the one taking care of you. Because she has an insecurity in the back of her mind that what? He's going to get married. Not realizing that I've seen these situations happen, he still got married. You're not going to change a man from his nature. I don't care how much you try to fight it. Allah's, how he created man is going to take over, regardless. You can have an $80,000, $100,000 paying job to try to control a man. A man at the end of the day is still going to be a man. No matter how much you try to take his manhood away from him. He's still going to get married. And I heard a couple of situations this happen. So I said, why did sister try to do this to this man? Why you take your manhood away from your own husband and then expect that things are going to go the way you want in your household? When you reverse what Allah has made things and ordained things to be, you reversed it. All because of some issues mentally. I want power. Where do you get this from? This is from Islamic, from how we were before we were what? Muslim. Then you'll have the opposite side of the extreme, brothers and sisters. You'll find another opposite. It's another behavioral problem. You'll find that the sister now plays another type of mind game with a brother. What would she do? She'll try to now, since he has one job, she'll try to busy him with all of his expenses. I need this, I need this, I need this, I need this, I need this. What's her intention behind it, though? Her intention is to make sure your expenses is all used up so you won't what? Get married again. The opposite side of the extreme. You see, do you think that we don't know what's going on? We know exactly what's going on in our communities. We know the games. We have keen senses of what's going on. So you have the both opposite side of the extremes where this is causing problems in our what? In our marriages and societies. So you find that there are both sides of the fence. Either the sister wants to take care of the brother so she can control him, or try to do another type of way of what? Indirect control, which, listen, you pay for all the bills, I'm going to keep all your funds exhausted because I'm going to make sure that he doesn't what? Get married again. I'm going to make sure. So I'm going to exhaust all his funds to make sure he doesn't what? Get married. Is it clear what I'm saying so far, everyone? These are the games that you'll find that are played in a lot of relationships. And even from the men. The men will go along with it in certain instances. You want to be my mother? I'll let you. You want to be the support of the house? Okay, I'll let you do that. I'll let you do that. Because he also has what? He also has problems. So these things and these lectures that I'm going to have to talk about, and I'll tackle them in another occasion. All these opposes Kitab and Sunnah, brothers and sisters. If we don't try to now recognize these problems, all these different types of divorces are going to continue. Then we have problems with our brothers, where our brothers treat our wives as if they want to be the father in the house to the point where they don't let them breathe. That's another thing that I want to also speak about. They have a type of some kind of what they call authoritative problem. that they want to exhaust their authority. But they do it in a manner that's disrespectful. Disrespectful of beating a woman's self-esteem down, beating her down mentally and emotionally, which is another problem. We have so many ills that these things carry on before we were Muslim in Islam. And we're trying to rectify them to the best of our ability. But now we have to start with the problem, which is, of course, Kitab al-Tawheed, Usul al-Thalatha. Then, after that, addressing these issues. So, again, starting off, sisters and brothers, don't come into a marriage looking for a pop or looking for your father. Your father's your father. And brothers, don't come into the marriage looking for a mom. I don't want my wife to be my mother. My mother's my mother. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? And don't come into marriage being a child either. Of course, everyone wants to marry a spouse where they're mature, they know how to conduct themselves like adults, and they know how to what? They know what they have to do on both ends. And then we'll stop here, inshallah. As far as, oh man, I forgot the letter. The letter, Jazakallah khairan for the sister who sent me this letter. She sent me the letter about some comments that I made in the khutbah. Jazakallah khairan for the advice. It's well accepted. And if that's not the case, then, like I said, I ask Allah's forgiveness if I was wrong. And if I was not correct in this regard, then I seek Allah's forgiveness. And I ask pardon from Allah first, and then the community and the sisters. But this, as far as the advice, it's definitely been considered. And like I said, I'll try to work on it. But at the same time, I do notice, like I said, we're trying to also bring the communities together. We're trying to bring everyone together. We want everyone, doesn't matter whether they're from Chester or from Delaware or wherever area you're from, to come and offer their support. And I said, like again, I apologize if, like I said, I offended anyone in the khutbah with Jazakumullah khairan. Any questions about the lesson? So we can stop. Any questions? Any questions about the lesson? You have a question?